Surameraya majjapama datthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Tisaranena sadding panchasilang dhammang sadhukang surakkitang katva appamadena sampadeta. Okay, you may now be seated. Most venerable members of the Mahasangha, members of the audience, our listeners online. Before we begin, let us take a moment to invite all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead, those beings who will have assisted us, supported us, been by our side through various occasions, circumstances, eventualities in our lives, not just in this birth but in previous births, those who might have come to our help, those to whom we may have been at their mercy. It is now our opportunity to invite them to join us so that they may witness this meritorious deed. And if any of them have been born in the woeful plains because of deeds that they might have done through ignorance and attachment, having been blinded in ignorance and attachment with desire, aversion and delusion, it is now the prime opportunity for us to invite them so that they may witness this meritorious deed, rejoice in it, and then be able to redeem themselves from those woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains, reminding ourselves that perhaps some of the reasons that they might today be born in the woeful plains is because they committed deeds on our behalf, which meant that we were able to be born in the blissful plane, but alas, they in the woeful plains. It is time to pay back. It is time to pay back what it is that we owe them. It is time to pay back our debts. And as the gift that excels all gifts is the gift of Dhamma, today, having received that gift ourselves, let us take a moment to pass on that gift to all sentient beings. And for any beings who are already in the blissful planes, may this Dhamma sermon enable them to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, as I now make this invitation, I invite you all to extend this invitation out in your hearts and in your minds to all sentient beings, those who might have been mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, grandparents, so on and so forth. Anyone and everyone who might have helped you in any way, shape or form, might have been just a glass of water or perhaps showed you the path when you were lost in samsara. Whatever way, shape or form they might have helped you, let us invite them all to join us, witness this meritorious deed and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhammang Munirajasansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Badhanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Badhanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Badhanta. And also before we commence, let us take a moment to reflect on the fact that although today we may be clad in robes and you perhaps in white, which is possibly perhaps a representation of our state of mind today, This has not always been the case in our infinitely long journey in samsara. We are not the good people that we are today. We were not the good people that we are today in our infinitely long journey in samsara. And this is because we did not have the association of moral and noble people. We did not have the association of the Dhamma. Virtually all our associations, our relations, our connections have been with immoral, ignoble people who defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion. And having been blinded in ignorance and attachment, avidya and tanha, we may have offended, abused, slandered and desecrated the noble ones. The Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagami, Sakurdagami, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Sambuddha Shasana, the Buddha's ministry. In having done so, either knowingly or unknowingly, such words, thoughts or actions of misdeed, abuse or slander may today become a barrier, may hinder our progress in the Dhamma. So prior to us commencing, let us all take a moment to seek forgiveness from the noble ones and from the Buddha's ministry for any words, thoughts or actions of misdeed, abuse or slander that we may have directed towards them. And finally, let us all take a moment to make a firm resolve that through the course of this sermon, if there are any gaps to my understanding, my comprehension of the Dhamma, which keep me from attaining or achieving the noble attainments, may through the course of this sermon I be able to fulfill those gaps in my knowledge, in my understanding, in my comprehension, and may I be able to achieve the noble attainment of Sotapanna. And for any who have already attained that state, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent steps to becoming an Arahant and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So with that firm resolve in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. When I speak of the Buddha, what do you feel? How do you feel about the Buddha? What thoughts come to mind? Is he a hero? Is he a champion? How do you feel about the Buddha? What do you feel your connection is with the Buddha? You're not friends with him on Facebook, are you? No, so that's not the kind of connection I'm talking about. But what connection do we have with the Buddha? He's not here any longer. Does he care what connection we have with him? Does it matter? Does he care? Do we care? So who is the Buddha to us? Is he a teacher? Is he your master? In which case, are you a slave? Are you a student? Are you a follower? Are you a disciple? What are you? I mean, you pay homage to the Buddha. You offer flowers at his feet. You light incense. You light oil lamps. So what is this connection that you have with the Buddha? Why is it you do that to him but perhaps not others? So there must be some connection between you and the Buddha, which this is why you go to see him. When you go to the temple, you go looking for the Buddha, don't you? Knock, knock. Is the Buddha home? So what's this connection that we have? What connection does he have with us? Do you think you owe him something? Is that why you keep offering flowers at his feet? Is that why you offer puja, give alms to the Buddha? Do you feel like you owe something? Do you? Think about on New Year's Day, or the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. We have customs, right? So some of our customs involve visiting those that we have connections with, relations. And then we go and visit them and we take sweets, things that they like to eat, gifts. And we go and see them. Sometimes we take a handful of betel leaves, go and worship them, right? So there's a connection there. When we make offerings to somebody, is that because we owe them something? Is that a debt that requires to be repaid? Or are we just being grateful? Do we need to be grateful to the Buddha? What is the point in us being grateful to him? He's not here anymore. He's gone. He did his bit and now he's gone. So why do we need to be grateful? Well, to answer that, it requires an understanding of what is the Buddha. Distinguish between what and who. I said what is the Buddha, not who is the Buddha. Who is a person? But when you say what, I can ask, who's a doctor? But what is a doctor? They're two very entirely different questions, right? A who is a person. That's a doctor. There's a doctor. Who's a doctor? And one of you might put your arms up and say, I'm a doctor. But if I ask, what is a doctor? Can any of you put your arms up? No, because a what, there's no person behind the what. So when we make offerings to the Buddha, when we speak of the Buddha, I want you all to understand that it's not a who that we have a connection with. It's not a who that we have a relation to. It's not the who behind the Buddha that you go and offer flowers to. Worship, light incense, make offerings. No, it's not the who, it's the what. The Buddha is the culmination, it's the amalgamation, it's the coming together of all the great qualities there ever was, there ever is, and there ever will be. Where all great qualities that ever was known to humankind, all mankind, all devas, all brahmas, all beings, where all great qualities come together, what you find there is the Buddha. Not the who, the what. So if someone asks, what is the Buddha? If someone asks, who is the Buddha? You could say, well, there was a prince called Siddhartha who renunciated, and after 6 long years of asceticism, he found the Dhamma, and under the Bodhi tree, he became a Buddha. Now, what is a Buddha? Now you can't speak of Siddhartha. Because we're not speaking about a person. We're speaking of what it is that entails a Buddha. So if someone asks you, what is a Buddha? Then simply the answer is all the great qualities there ever was, there ever is, there ever will be. All joined together, all brought together, put together into one single point. Bring it all together and you have the Buddha. It's like how the black hole, the Big Bang. You all heard about the Big Bang, right? There's a theory, the Big Bang theory. How the entire cosmos, the entire universe was just one dot at one point. I'm not speaking in favor of it or against it. I'm just saying there's a theory called the Big Bang theory, where the entire universe was just one dot, one tiny speck, and then the whole thing went bang. And then you had the stars and the planets and the moons and everything. So if you reverse that process, everything brought back together, and you come back to that one tiny dot. Likewise, if you bring all the great qualities that you can ever think of, you can ever find, in whom? You can find them in people. Parents, they have good qualities, great qualities. Teachers, friends, grandparents, they have great qualities. What about your pet dog? Does it not have good qualities? No matter how much you mistreat the animal, it's still going to come wagging its tail when it sees you. Can you name one person that might do that? No matter how you treat them, they'll always come wagging their tail when they see you. A mother might. Your father might. But beyond that, I can't think of many. But a dog always does. That's why it's called man's best friend. No matter how you treat the dog, your pet dog, it's always going to be delighted to see you. Now, isn't that a great quality? Because it recognizes this is the person that fills my stomach. This is the person that puts me out of my hunger. This is the person that has given me a home. This is the person that looks after me. You see how a dog recognizes qualities in you? Are you intelligent enough, clever enough to spot the qualities in the dog? A dog sees the good qualities in you. This is why it comes wagging its tail no matter how you've mistreated the animal. It'll still come after you. It'll come and lick your feet. That's what a dog's like. But are you the same? If a dog's come and dirtied the carpets, will you treat the animal just the same? Or at that point in time, will you forget that this is my pet? Here's the animal that keeps me safe from strangers. At that point in time, do you forget all that? And a good old stick comes to hand. Do you have the qualities of a dog at least? The good qualities of a dog? So we've got to think. That animal's grateful. Are you? If you can't be grateful to your pet dog, how can you be grateful to the Buddha? If you can't be grateful to your pet dog, who's always by your side, who's always there for you, will always bark at strangers, keep your home safe. When you're sleeping, when you're fast asleep at night, who guards your home? It's your dog. So you don't have to come running outside, get out of your bed and come and check who's loitering around. Well, your dog's doing your security guard business for you. Because that animal's grateful. Do you have the same gratitude that your dog has? At least? If not, if you can't spot the great qualities or the good qualities of a dog, then how can you be capable of spotting the good qualities, the great qualities of a Buddha? Because they're worlds apart. But the good qualities of a dog are also part of what makes a Buddha. I'm not saying the Buddha is a dog, okay? What I'm saying is the great qualities that you can find wherever, all sentient beings, extract all the great qualities from all sentient beings, bring it to one place, now you have the Buddha. So if animals can be grateful, I think we need to recognize the importance of being grateful. Because a lot of people come and speak to me. Can we get the windows open, please? hopefully that will make you feel a little bit more comfortable. Thank you. A lot of people come and speak to me, and they share experiences of how their lives have evolved since they started to listen to the Dhamma. And it's really interesting. A lot of the time they come and tell me, Swamin Wahansa, if only I had been able to listen to your sermons, or these sermons, by any monks, 6 months ago, my life would have taken a very different direction. I would not have made my wife pregnant. If only I had listened to this sermon 6 months ago, they say. Others say, if only I had been able to listen to these sermons a week ago, I wouldn't have tied the knot. So they come and talk to me about things that they're now regretting, repenting. I listen. I listen to them and then I say, what makes you think that your wife has not helped you to be where you are today? What makes you think that the circumstances that your life have taken now, whichever path it's taken now, is not the reason why you got to listen to the sermons? A guy breaks a leg. Unfortunate. Perhaps. He breaks a leg and now he's bedridden. A friend comes along to see him and he says, hey, now that you're going to be bedridden for the next 3 months, why don't you listen to this CD? I've been listening to some sermons and I think they're quite interesting. Why don't you listen to some of them as well? There you go. Now he's got no choice because he's bedridden. So whenever he's not watching TV, he decides, why don't I just listen to that sermon? Nothing lost. So he gets an opportunity to listen to it. If he hadn't broken that leg, he'd have been partying. He'd have been clubbing. Not had the opportunity to listen to those sermons. So why does he then complain that he broke a leg? We love to regret, don't we? We love to regret. Aren't there things in your lives which you regret? Think about your past and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That shouldn't have happened to me. I never should have met him or her. Why did that person come into my life? They wasted me. They ruined me. Everything I owned, everything I worked hard to earn, they took all of that away from me. What a shame. So much regret. Does regret help you feel joy in your hearts? What does regret bring you? Joy? Pleasure? It brings you pain, remorse, dissatisfaction. Where does the Buddha say remorse, dissatisfaction and pain lead you to Nibbana? Where does the Buddha say that? He doesn't say that anywhere. Because those thoughts are not conducive to Nibbana. The thing is, there's no point in regretting. There's no point in repenting. Looking back at the past and thinking, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, that person should never have come into my life. These thoughts are not useful. They're useless. Because how can you go back into the past and change them? The really sad fact of the matter is, you don't realize how those events really supported you to get where you are today. You don't see the connection. You're failing to see the connection. That's why you're regretting. If you somehow figured out how you getting married was the reason that today you're able to listen to these sermons, you'd be a happier person. If you somehow realize that you having a child was the reason that you somehow got to listen to these sermons, any sermons, I'm not talking particularly about these sermons, I'm talking about finding a path to enter into the journey of Nibbana. If you somehow found that connection, I think you'd be a happier person. Every day I'm grateful that I got married as a layperson. As a layperson, I held on to some very distorted views about the world. I didn't believe in karma and vipaka. I didn't believe in afterlife or the life before. I was a very materialistic person. I didn't believe in gods. I didn't believe in offering alms. That's just a waste of time. If I've earned something, well, it's mine to keep, so I might as well, I spend it how I want it. Why should I go offering alms to people who don robes and they don't do anything for themselves? Thoughts that I used to have. I didn't bother going to the temple, observing Sil. No, I wasn't interested in any of that stuff. Becoming king was what was in my mind. Becoming the best. Becoming the wealthiest. Becoming the richest. Becoming the most powerful. That was what I was interested in. Then I got married. And the person I got married to, she slowly but eventually encouraged me into a path of Dhamma. She said we should go and listen to sermons sometimes. We should at least offer alms to the temple once a month. Things that she asked me to do. And so I started. At first I didn't see the point in doing all that. But eventually, things started to make sense. If I hadn't done that, I doubt I'd be here right now today. If I hadn't given alms when I had the opportunity to, if I hadn't made the effort to go to the temple, make offerings to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, perhaps those were the things that earned me the merit that I required to be where I am today. Before she came into my life, I never offered an Attapirikara. That was the first time I had done so. I think a couple of years after I had got married. The first time I had offered an Attapirikara. Perhaps that was what earned me enough merit to come into robes. Because you can't come into robes if you've never offered an Attapirikara in your life at any point in samsara. Because you need those merits. So now, is it right for me to look at my life, at my past and go, I shouldn't have gotten married. If I hadn't, then I would have been able to come to this path much sooner, much earlier. All that time I wasted. Because, when you walk the path of Dhamma, you might begin to realize the uselessness of certain things that, we do in our worldly lives. Like building attachments with other people, building connections, setting expectations, and how all that leads to suffering. So in your contemplation of such realities, you might begin to look at your past and then regret, I shouldn't have done that at that point in my life. The Dhamma is not to regret, ladies and gentlemen. The Dhamma is not to look back at our lives and go, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. That's not what the Dhamma is for. The Dhamma is so you can look at the future and go, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that. Not, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done. Because that is regret. That's repent, that's remorse. What's the point? Show me one place where the Buddha gives an admonition to somebody and say, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. Except where he said discipline, the code of discipline. When he speaks to his monks and says, monk, why did you do that? That was wrong of you to do, and from here forth I set a rule of discipline, so thereby you are not allowed to engage in such conduct. Except for those occasions, there's never a time where he talks about the past of somebody as a means of giving advice, as a means of giving an admonition, telling off. Because there's no point in doing that. Because feelings of repentance are negative thoughts. Thoughts that take away joy. Taking away of joy is not something that leads you to happiness. I mean, how can being unhappy to be happy make sense? Because when you're regretting, these are not thoughts of happiness, right? They're thoughts of regret, repentance, remorse, negative feelings. And you're trying to traverse a path which leads you to happiness, which are positive feelings. How can fulfilling negative feelings help you to achieve something that's positive? That just cannot make sense. So the Dhamma is not to look back and regret. The Dhamma is to look at the future. Look at the present moment, and then from this point forward into the future. I've made mistakes, yes, but let me learn from them so I don't make the same mistakes again. And from our past mistakes we can learn things. And also, I think something that we all should try to do better than we do already is be grateful for those things that have happened in our lives. If you're regretting them, then, who you are now is the net result of all the things that have happened in your life. True or false? Yes or no? Who you are now, where you are now, what you're doing now is the net result of all the things that have happened in your life up until this point. So the fact that you're here right now, listening to this sermon, is the net result of all the things that have happened from the beginning of samsara to a minute before you entered this hall. All things combined. Now, if the net result of all those things that happen in your life is you being able to be here, and if you want to be here, that's why you are here, then tell me, can you name one thing that happened in your past that you feel, no, that shouldn't have happened to me? Because if that had changed, the net result would be different. Could potentially be different. Some parents, I think just the other day, earlier on this week, a mother came to visit with mother and husband, husband and wife. They came to visit us at the monastery. And this child is mentally handicapped. So now the parents are really suffering. Not my words, their words. Because I can't decide if someone else is suffering. You decide that, right? So the parents came and visited me and they say, Swaminas, we're really suffering. We brought this child into this world, and now because of this child, we go through so much pain and agony. Looking after this child is not easy. This child can't look after itself, and we realize that from now on, for as long as we're going to be alive, we're going to have to tend to this child. There's never going to be a moment of peace for us. I regret, the parents say. We regret. With tears in their eyes. And I say, well, tell me a little bit about what was life like before this child came into your life. And they said, well, before that, we were really happy. We were a very happy couple. We went sightseeing, we went round the world, we did all the fun things in life. So what happened after after this child came into your life? Well, then reality hit us. And then we went seeking help from doctors. And when doctors failed to help us, we went into the temples, speaking to monks, asking if they could help us. And then eventually we got to listen to the Dhamma. And now we are on a path of the Dhamma, which we can see how it helps us get to Nibbana. And I said, well, so you regret having that child? Are you serious? Is it not because that child came into your life took a different turn? Because had that child not come into your lives, had a fully formed child without any disabilities, without any handicap come into your life, where would you be right now? Where would you be today? Probably at a party. Probably in some other country, having fun. But where are you now? Listen to the Dhamma. In good association, in noble association, on a path to Nibbana. So tell me, then you regret that event? Or are you just failing to see the blessing? Aren't you just simply failing to see the silver lining in the dark cloud? This is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, we should never be regretful. Things that have happened. Because regret never solved any problem. Repent never solved any problem. You can't go back into the past and change past events. All you can do is change the future. The past is what made you who you are. Isn't it? You are the gentleman today because of past events that happened in your life. If you are thrifty today, it may be because you were not born into a well-to-do family. Because your parents found it difficult to make ends meet. So what did they do? They taught you to be thrifty. They taught you to be careful with how you spend your money. They taught you to be resourceful. Perhaps if you were born into a really well-to-do family, then you might not be so thrifty today. Perhaps you might go spending. Perhaps you might not be here because all you want to do is just go spending, entertaining, friends, partying. Perhaps you might not be here today. So how can you then say that me being born into a poor family is the cause for my suffering? That shouldn't have happened in my life. I think we all need to be a little bit more grateful in our lives. This is why I say I'm always grateful to who was my wife as a lay person. If it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be here today. I probably wouldn't be in robes today. If it wasn't for my teachers from Montessori, I probably wouldn't be here today. When you transfer merits, do you remember your teachers? I had a habit as a lay person. Even after I'd left school, I used to ring my teachers every New Year. Even when I was in the UK, I'd ring them in Sri Lanka and then speak to them. Because I knew that just a few words would make them happy. Just them knowing that I was doing well, thanks to their efforts, made them happy. That was a habit that I had. Do you do that? I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying here are things that we can all learn to do. Do you encourage your children to go and speak to their teachers when they've left school? After they've left high school, college, and then moved on to do, jobs and they're now well-to-do. Do you encourage your children to go back to their schools where they went to Montessori, where they did their scholarship, where they did their O-levels, their A-levels? Because that was their founding. That was where they became who they are now. Their formative years, that's where they spent. Where's the gratitude? That gratitude is essential. Because if you're not grateful to your teachers, how can you be grateful to the Buddha? If you don't realize what your teachers have given you, teachers who you were able to associate in your life, teachers who you came across, living, breathing people, how can you be grateful to a Buddha that you've never seen? How can you be grateful to someone who only lived 2,500 years ago? You didn't even see the face of. How do you know that this is the true face of the Buddha? You don't know that. This is what someone thinks he was like. You can never make a sculpture of the Buddha exactly like the Buddha was. That is an impossibility. So you will never see the Buddha. Not in your lifetime. But your teachers, you have. At least if they can't go to their schools, give them a call. Speak to their teachers. Because that's really important. Being grateful. Because if you don't instill those values, ladies and gentlemen, your children are going to forget their parents pretty soon as well. They're going to forget mother, father. Ammi and Tati are just going to be two people that did what they were supposed to do to bring me up because they brought me into this world. That was their duty. That was their obligation. So they should have done it. It was not a nice to do. They had to do it. Your children are going to begin to think like that. I'm not necessarily speaking about you, But I'm speaking of, these sermons will be listened to by people in other countries as well as perhaps in many years from now. And as you know, values are diminishing every year. As time passes by, we are not who we were, who our ancestors were. Do you know how much our ancestors valued these values? Nowadays, kids put their feet up in the presence of their teacher, on the table. It surprises me how someone could even do something like that. But that's just become the norm now. Children speak up to their parents. They shout at them. Our ancestors wouldn't have dreamt of something like that. But the reason that they were happier than we are today is because of those values that they had in their lives. All those values we've just washed, put it through the washing machine. All that came out was riches, wealth, that's it. All the values washed away. What a pity. Eventually we're just going to be left with the husk, not the grain. The good stuff will be gone if we don't do something about it. And I'm not saying let's go all try and change the world. Let's make the world a better place for you, for me, and for everybody else. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm asking you to do is apply this into your own lives. Teach your children the value of respecting parents. Teach them who their parents are. Teach them to be grateful. Particularly as you walk this path of the Dhamma, eventually what will happen, and I can say this as if I can see into the future, if you don't have a solid founding, if you're not based in gratitude, because actually ungratefulness is an army of the Mara, is one of the Dasamara Sena. Ungratefulness, conceit and ungratefulness, ingratitude. Army of the Mara that will defeat you on your path to Nibbana. This is why it's so important to be grateful for everything that, and all the events and all the people that in our lives have helped us. What did the Buddha do when he attained Nibbana? He looked back at his past. My teachers, Alara Kala Muddakarama Putta, how can I go and be of assistance to them? But alas, they are not in a place where I can help them now. Then he looked at the 5 ascetics. The 5 ascetics, remember, who abandoned him. The 5 ascetics who abandoned him. Because they thought what? He's given up. He no longer has the courage. So let's just abandon him. And despite that abandonment, see how much gratitude the Buddha had? He still went looking for him. Now tell me, if perhaps there's been someone in your life, perhaps an ex-partner, an ex-spouse, who abandoned you for whatever reason, do you still hold a grudge against them? Because they weren't good to you? What about all the things that they did for you while you were still together? Isn't one of the reasons that you're here today, right now, because of how you spent time with them? Or perhaps even because they left you at that point in life? Perhaps they did you a favor by leaving you at that point in life. Because if they hadn't done that, your life would have taken a completely different path. You know the old saying, right? A butterfly spans his wings in one part of the world, and there's a storm in the other part of the world. What's the essence of that? Little things can make a huge difference. So if I move my arm to the left versus I move my arm to the right, it's going to make a difference. Because history now has been written this way. If I move my arm to the right, that's a different story from that point forward. So whoever has come into your lives, ladies and gentlemen, be grateful. Those people may not be in your lives today. They may have left you. You may have left them, but still be grateful for all the time that they were with you. Sometimes couples or guys come up to me and say, Swami Nwansa, there was a girlfriend that I was going out with and then she dumped me. I curse her. And I say, do you not realize, young man, that for all the time that she was with you, she dedicated her life to you? She didn't look at another guy. She didn't think about another person. All she cared was you, your happiness. She dedicated herself to your happiness. Do you not think about that? Why do you just see the one thing that she did, the one bad thing that she did? But what about all the good times that she did, that she spent with you? All the good things that she did for you. Why do you only think about the bad stuff? Why do you go digging for dung? You know what's going to happen then? Look for the gold. Look for the gems. Look for the jewels. Because if at any point in your lives, ladies and gentlemen, we have suffered mentally, then we know now what the answer for that is. What is the cause for that? What is the cause for all mental suffering? Attachment. Not the girl dumping me. Not the guy dumping me. Not my partner filing for a divorce. That was not the root, that was not the cause for mental suffering. Attachment is always the cause for mental suffering. So if attachment is always with me, in my mind, then who else is to blame? Who do we have to blame? The only thing we have to do is really be grateful. Seriously, think about that for a moment. If there's no one in this world, can you name one person in this world that has made you angry? Come on. One person that has made you angry. I know what you're thinking. There was Sam, then there was Samantha, there was Richard. Oh, I hate that guy. He made me angry really bad. See, really? When was the last time someone else made you angry? Can someone else make you angry? Is anger something that someone else can do to you? No. Anger is something you do to yourself. Because all they can say are words. How you construct those words, how you tie those words together like you do with a necklace, depends on your state of mind. It's you who process those words. You're the processor. They just give you inputs. You're the processor. You process how you like it, and then out comes the output. He shouted at me. She scolded me. So she made me angry. Incorrect. You made yourself angry. Remember last week or the week before I told you about the visit to the zoo? When you go to the aviary and there are birds in the cages, you go listen to the birds and you think the birds are singing along, right? Singing bird songs. They're chirping away, singing bird songs. Only because you don't speak bird language. That's why you think that. If one day you learnt bird language, you realize that they are cursing at you. Because what are they saying? I lived a happy life in the forest with my baby birds and everybody else in my family. I used to eat leaves and fruits of the trees. I had a very free life. What did you do? You caged me up and you put me in a zoo. Now look at me. I'm stuck here. So you think they're singing bird songs? No, they're cursing at you. Much the same like all the other animals in the zoo. They're cursing at you. Because do you like to be caged? What makes you think an animal likes to be caged then? Anyway, that's besides the point. What I was trying to say was, you can't name one person that has made you angry. Because anger is not a product of the outside world. Anger is a product of the inside world. You become angry, not the other person made you angry. So, if no one's made you angry, can you name one person that has made you sad in your life? Come on, surely. There must be somebody in your life that's made you sad. Just give me one person. No? So if no one made you angry, if no one's made you sad, then the only things that another person will have given to you is happiness. Supported you, assisted you in some way, shape or form. Been of assistance to you. Helped you. Right? Because help can come from the outside world. And I'm talking about that kind of happiness. I'm not talking about the mental happiness, because again, mental happiness cannot be a factor of the outside world either. That's not a product of the outside world either. So no one really in this world has made you happy, and no one's made you sad. You did it all by yourself. But people in the world, other people in the world can assist you, can support you, give you a meal, shelter, clothing, make life easy for you to live, bring you comforts that make life easy to live. All that they've done for you. So if you think about a relationship, a husband-wife relationship, and the reason that they're going for a divorce is because the husband says that she always makes me angry, is that true? If that is the reason that he's trying to file for a divorce, knowing and understanding that the wife never made the husband angry, what has the wife given the husband? Put that to aside. What else has the wife given to the husband? 3 meals a day, ironing his clothes, washing clothes, dirty dishes, sweeping the house, feeding the children, right? All things that has made his life easier, made his life comfortable, right? So if the wife's never made him angry, then the only thing that the wife has ever done to this guy is make life easy. Make life easier, make life comfortable. So why is this guy filing a divorce then? Because his wife has never done anything bad to this person. All she's done is good. Do you get my point? No one's ever made another person angry. And if a couple are trying to break up because the other has made me angry, then we know that that is not true, because no one else can make us angry. But in a relationship, these two help each other out by making comforts available at home. So that is real. That is true. Cooking a meal, that's not a fabrication of the mind. That really happened. Okay? So if those things have really happened, but making someone angry is not true, that's just a fabrication of the mind, then why are you trying to divorce? You're trying to fix your problem by treating the outside world. When's that going to work out? That's not going to work out. That's pointless. So if you're not capable of looking at things like that, then you forget the gratitude. You forget to be grateful. Be grateful. Children, be grateful to your parents. And these are not just words. It has to come with the feeling behind it. Think about how much parents have done for us. I think one of the first sermons that we delivered, one was in Australia to some young children. One of the things that I asked them to do from here forward is to help do the dishes at home. I think children at the age of 6, 7, 8 and so on. I said, do the dishes at home. Again, parents here, I ask you, if you don't encourage your children to do dishes at home, and that's because you think it's too much trouble for them, well, I think you're setting them off on the wrong direction. You're ruining them. Because they're going to forget gratitude. If they can't see why and how they should be grateful to their parents, when are they ever going to learn why they should be grateful to the Buddha? Because you can't begin to comprehend what the Buddha is. At least parents, you can begin to just think about what parents are, because one day you can become a parent. But who here wants to become a Buddha? You have to become a Buddha to know who a Buddha is. Or what a Buddha is. To know what a parent is, you have to become a parent. So children, they can eventually one day become a parent, and then they will realize. Lots of movies. When do parents When do people, in lots of movies, right? When do people look back at their lives, they retrospect, and then they start crying and they think about their parents? Oh, I should have looked after my parents much more than I really did. Most of the time, that's when they become parents themselves. And then they realize how difficult bringing up a child is. So when you become a parent, then you begin to understand what a parent is. So likewise, you're going to know what a Buddha is when you become a Buddha. And I have no intention of becoming a Buddha. Certainly not a Supreme Buddha. Because that's too far to aim. I really can't be bothered. Because there's a closer target that we can aim for. But to begin to understand, at least to begin to understand who or what the Buddha is, well, before that you have to understand what your parents are. Not who. Who your parents are, you'll say this person, that person. But what your parents are, what your teachers are, what your friends are, what your relations are, how much they've done for us. Be grateful. Have that gratitude. Once again I say, on your path in the Dhamma, if there are 5 people at home, these 5 people are like the 5 fingers on your hand, on your palm. On your hand rather. They're all of different lengths, as you can see. The thumb is the shortest. Then you have the little finger. Then you have the index finger. And so on, until you get to the middle finger. They're of different lengths. If you think of this as how far you've come along this path in the Dhamma, then if there are 5 people at home, the 5 people at home, their progression in the Dhamma, their understanding, their comprehension of the Dhamma will be like the 5 fingers on your hand. One will be further ahead. They'll have gone past everyone else in the family, and that could be you. But remember that there are others who are still taking baby steps. There will be someone at home who's still the thumb. They haven't come very far in the Dhamma. They're only beginning to observe the 5 precepts. You're talking about anicca dukkha anatta. You're talking about the Satara Satipatthana. And they're only beginning to learn the meaning of the 5 precepts. Then there'll be somebody else who's trying to abstain from the unwholesome deeds. But you're trying to take steps to become an anagami. So the thumb can never jump up and reach the middle finger, can it? What happens if the thumb jumps? The more it jumps, the rest are going to keep moving up as well. The thumb is never going to be able to reach the middle finger, or any other finger for that matter. So it's not for the thumb to jump and reach the middle finger, it's for the middle finger to come down and reach the thumb. Because that it can do, without the thumb having to do anything. That middle finger can bend and reach the thumb, but the thumb can never jump and touch the middle finger. So if you're the middle finger at home, as in the one at home who's gone the furthest in the Dhamma, then it's your duty, your responsibility to realize that everyone else at home may not be at the same level as you at home. You have to realize that you were once where the thumb is today. You have to realize that perhaps your wife, your spouse, your husband may be where the thumb is today, and you're right up there, but this person's still down here. You've got to realize that one day I was there myself. Get into their shoes. Step into their shoes. Don't gauge them from where you are right now. Get into their shoes. And think about how might they, when I was them, when I was like them, how did I feel about the world? When we got married, we never decided to get married so that we could go and become a monk and a nun one day. The reason we got married was so we can go and enjoy the world. Have kids, have a family. Wasn't that why everyone here got married? Have a beautiful life? Isn't that what you promised each other? So when you've given all those promises, now it may be that just one person in the family has started to listen to the Dhamma, and you now have a completely different aim a complete different purpose in life. But the other person, they're still holding on to what you promised them. They're still wanting kids. They're still wanting to have a beautiful family. According to them, a beautiful family. But to you, that's not what interests you anymore. Who's changed in this relationship? They or you? You've changed. So why do you point the finger at them? If you have changed, why point the finger at them? They came along with you because you promised them. Husbands think about your wives. Wives think about your husbands. Parents think about your children. Children think about your parents. Whatever your relationships are, whatever your connections are, this is why I say be grateful. Despite who you were they not willing to get married to you? Were you an arahant when you got married? Were you? Any of you? An arahant when you got married? So if you were not an arahant, weren't you just a bundle of raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs? So wasn't the other person, despite the fact that you were a bundle of raga, dvesha, moha walking on two legs, despite that fact, still agreed to get married to you and live under the same roof? Knowing fully well that you were a mundane prutakjana. Perhaps even knowing that a prutakjana is prone to committing unmeritorious deeds, unwholesome deeds. There's a chance that this person might cheat on me one day. There's a chance that I might have to die at this person's hand one day. Knowing all that, did they still not get married to you? Now how can you be ungrateful? Isn't that a quality that you really have to praise? Despite who you were, they still got married to you. Well, the guy next door didn't get married to you. The woman next door didn't go out with you. Your husband did. Your wife did. Because they were able to see some good qualities in you. So they decided, let's do this. So never be ungrateful. Because this is always, almost always this is going to be the case. If there are 5 people, take 2 people. If there are 2 people in the family, one's always going to be at least a step ahead of the other. Virtually always that's going to be the case. Look at your own families. See if this is not the case. There's always going to be one person ahead of the other. And if your understanding is like the one who's further ahead, if that is who you are, then it can happen that you look back, you look at the other person and you feel remorse. You think, why did I get married to this thing? I shouldn't have done this. Why doesn't she just understand? Why can't she get into her head that this is all pointless? The other day a young man came along and he said, again, he got married and again, he's saying, oh, if I had listened to your sermon 6 months ago, I wouldn't have done this, right? Oh, regret. And then he says, ever since I started to listen to sermons, my life has changed. Before I listened to sermons, I used to treat my wife at least once a week. I used to treat her by taking her out for a meal. Every birthday, every Valentine's Day, every New Year's Day, I used to treat her, take her to a massage or something like that. I used to, give her the best I could afford. Get her some jewelry, get her presents. But now I don't see the point in doing any of that. Because it's just pointless. It's all anicca dukkha anatta. So he says. And then he says, well, now my wife is not helping me. Surely she should be helping me to walk this path of Dhamma. Why is she not helping me? She's against me coming to the temple and listening to sermons. Surely that's very evil of her. Swami Maharaj, please can you speak to her and give her some advice? Because I've tried telling her, but she won't listen to me. I think you should. So he wants me to speak to his wife and give her advice to adjust to this new person that her husband has become. Who's changed? The husband's changed. All I could say is, sir, you're making it difficult on yourself. It's not your wife who's stopping you from going out listening to sermons. You're doing it to yourself. If every 2 weeks, every fortnight you took her out for a meal, I suggest you start doing it every week now. If every Valentine's, every birthday, every New Year's Day, all you got her was a box of chocolates, I suggest you also get her a rose now. Why? Because if you stop doing the things that she's expecting from you, if you stop giving what you promised her, you would, when you tied that knot, all those promises, right? I will never leave you till death do us part, right? All those beautiful promises, forgotten. Just because you have now started listening to the Dhamma. You've made it difficult on yourself, sir. I said, you promised all these things to her, and now it's only right that she expects them from you, because you promised her. So now that you are not delivering what you promised, well, it's no surprise that she's disappointed. No surprise that she's frustrated. No surprise that she feels that you listening to sermons is the cause for her suffering. Because clearly, if she listened to sermons, she would realize that attachment is the root for all suffering. But she's not yet. And the way you're going, she's never going to. Because the more you mistreat her, because from her point of view, this is mistreating, right? This is mistreatment. From her point of view, this is mistreating her. You promised her the world and you're not giving her a modicum. You're not giving her anything. So you're mistreating her. And from her perspective, it's the Dhamma that is the cause for our suffering. We lived a really happy family life until this bugger went along and started listening to sermons. Now the Dhamma is to blame. The Buddha is to blame. The Sangha is to blame. Now what do they start to do? They really do start blaming the Dhamma, the Buddha and the Sangha. And in doing that, Aripavad. Now tell me, when is she ever going to understand that attachment is the cause for all suffering? Is he not just digging a bigger hole every day? Because you're going to have to live with her. Until you part, you're going to have to live with her. You're just making it even more difficult on yourself by doing this. So this is why I suggest, if you took her out every fortnight, then now start taking her out every week. Because then what is she going to think? Actually, every time since he started listening to sermons, he's treating me like a queen. He only took me out every other week. Now he's taking me out every week. What's the cause for this change? Oh, he's listening to sermons. Go, listen to more sermons. If you used to speak to your wife by using her name before you started listening to sermons, now what do you start calling her? Darling. Sweetheart. Honey. Why? What is she going to start thinking now? Because she doesn't realize attachment is the cause for suffering. All she knows, and who's to blame? Ignorance. The same ignorance that this man was in before he started listening to sermons, right? This is why he got married. The same ignorance. So now what you ought to do is help her come out of that ignorance. You're expecting this thumb to jump up and reach for the thumb, reach for the middle finger. The thumb can't do that, sir. You have to bend. You have to be flexible. You have to reach down and touch the thumb and help the thumb come up. Make progress. So you have to get down to your wife's level. You have to realize that this is where you were before you started listening to the sermons. Before this Dhamma came into your life. So get into her shoes. Look at the world from her view. Look at yourself as a husband from her perspective. And for wives here, do the same the other way. Because this problem will be there everywhere. Whenever you start to walk on this path of the Dhamma, because the way of the world is one, the way to Nibbana is another. Anya hilabu panisa, anya Nibbana gamini. The path to Nibbana is one. The path to riches, the path to the wealth, the path to joy in a worldly sense is another. Completely different. 180 degrees apart. So you promised to take this person this way, now all of a sudden you've decided to go the other way. You've changed, not the other person. So you have to be more understanding. You have to be grateful. If you're beginning to realize how much raga, dvesha, moha you had in your hearts before you started listening to sermons, because you will all come to that point. Come to a point where the fires of raga, dvesha, moha are starting to become extinguished. It's then you're going to begin to be able to look back at the past and think, good heavens, how much raga, dvesha, moha there was in my heart before I started listening to these sermons. Now, thinking about that, do you realize what kind of person your partner got married to? The day you become a Sotapanna, you will never want to cheat on your wife. You will never want to do that. The day you become a Sotapanna, you will never want to cheat on your husband. It's not because you will restrain yourself when you feel the need to do it. It's because you will just not want to do it. Two different things. One guy wants to do it, but he thinks, no, I shouldn't do it. It's bad. I shouldn't do it. The other guy just doesn't want to do it. When you become a Sotapanna, you will not want to do it. When the day comes where you don't want to do it, you will be able to retrospect, look back at the past and think about the day, think about the time, think about the guy who used to want to do it, and your wife still got married to him, right? Wasn't it great for your wife to do that? To get married to a man who was willing to cheat if the opportunity arose? Now where's the gratefulness? So make sure gratitude is not something you shed on the way to Nibbana. If the Buddha was the most grateful person ever, having attained Nibbana, he looked back at his infinitely long journey in samsara. Every person who helped me to be where I am today, how can I help them now? Then don't you see that in the process of becoming the Buddha, in the journey to becoming a Buddha, what he did was he cultivated, he developed this virtue, this quality of being grateful. And it culminated at the point of becoming a Buddha. At its peak, there's no one on this earth who is more grateful than the Buddha. No one. So that being the case then, we should all realize that if that is where we are aiming, that is where we are heading, then gratitude is not something we should shed along the way. It's something that we should continue to foster, continue to develop. So be grateful to everybody and anybody who will have helped you, even if they might have just offered you a glass of water. This is why at the end of sermons, ladies and gentlemen, I take a moment to ask you to remind yourselves about your local temple, the monks and nuns in your local temples and nunneries. Because you may come along here and listen to sermons. You may decide that this is where we are going to be able to listen to sermons that help us to go to Nibbana. That may or may not be the case. But have you forgotten those monks, those nuns in your local villages, in your local temples, who were there by your side through thick and thin, through rain and shine? Who came along to your funerals? For your almsgivings? We never came. They came. I've never come into any of your homes, but they did. They did. Monks just like us, who made a promise in front of the Buddha, my life I now dedicate to attaining Nibbana. And despite that, they set aside time, they put aside time to attend to your needs and wants. Where do you send your children to the Hampasa? Not here. We don't have a Hampasa. It's to your local temple. So is it right then that just because you come here to listen to sermons that you forget your local temple? The temple that was always by your side, your grandparents went there, your great-grandparents went there, your parents went there, you went there as a young child. So just because you decide this is where I got to learn the Dhamma, this is where I'm now able to become a Sotapanna. If you forget your past, if you forget your roots, I doubt you're even a Sotapanna. So anyone who might have touched your lives in any way, shape or form, be grateful. Be grateful. If there have been any monks, because it can happen. Some people might have been following a certain religious leader for it could be someone who's a convert, someone who's gone to a church all life, and then they get to listen to the Dhamma. Now they decide, no, the church is not for me. I now have to go to the temple. But what about the priest at the church who was always there to listen to you, to listen to your confessions? What about that priest who spent time? How much did they charge you to listen to your confessions? That time they spent on your behalf, can you forget them? How can you be ungrateful? An incredibly important value. I can't stress how important being grateful is. Because if you can't be grateful to your parents, to the monks in your local temples who were always by your side, through rain and shine, through the difficult times particularly, then you are never going to be able to be grateful to the Buddha. Because you don't know what the Buddha is. You may know who the Buddha was, but you won't know what the Buddha is. Because that is the pinnacle of gratitude. So reflect on that. Make sure your children know about this. Make sure your children learn to be grateful. Instill that value in their hearts and in their minds from very young ages. If your children have siblings, brothers, sisters, make sure that they say thank you whenever they receive something. It's just a word. But don't make it just a word for them. Help them realize the importance of being grateful. Thank you, Ayya. Thank you, Nangi. Make sure they say that. Don't let them walk away without saying that. If they do, stop, go back, thank him. But he's only my Ayya, so what? He gave you something that belonged to him. Now you're able to enjoy that because of him. One day that child is going to grow up, and even when you're not around, the siblings are going to look after each other. Because if you don't do that, if you don't put that glue between the siblings that are in your family, as in your children, then when you're not around, they're going to fight among each other for the land that you leave behind. You might as well not leave the land then, because that's what's going to cause a rift in the family. If you don't teach them those values. For the wealth that you leave behind, they're going to fight with each other. They're going to kill each other to get their hands on the money. You might as well not leave it if you don't instill these values in them. It's really, parents, there's so much you can and you have to do. Now that you've brought children into this world, there's so much that you have to do. Because like Guru Swami once said yesterday, otherwise you might as well have left them as Gandhabas. You might as well have. Because what have you done? You brought them into the human world, not taught them values. All you've given them is education and wealth and property. What are they going to do now? All they know is, to be happy in this world, I just need more education, more wealth, more property. That's it. It doesn't matter where that has to come from. By hook or by crook, I'm going to get it. So if I have to kill my brother, if I have to cheat on my sister, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do that so that I can be wealthier, I can be more prosperous. You might as well not have brought them into this world. Because in doing such things, they're going to pave a path to the four hells. You've just given them a one-way ticket to the hell. Why? Leave them alone. Just let them be where they are. At least as a human Gandhabba, they're not in the Dukati, they're in the Sukati. But the best way to teach somebody is by example. So make sure that you're an exemplary at home. If you have rifts in the family, Perhaps you have among your siblings, your brothers, your sisters. Don't let your children take a lesson from that. Don't leave that opportunity where your children learn that it's okay to have a grudge with your brother, to have a grudge with your sister. Don't let your children learn that. Be the better man. If your brother, if your sister is not willing to speak to you, then take your children along and show them and teach them. No, it's not right. We have a grudge and I'm going to sort it out. You pick up the phone. Why wait for them? You pick up the phone. Why wait for them? You go ring on their door and say, sorry, something's not right with us. Yes, such a thing happened in our past, but let the past be past. That's water under the bridge. You and we are siblings. We came from the same mother. We came from the same father. What do we have to fight for? Let's not set a bad example to our children. Because otherwise they're going to grow up learning that it's okay to have a grudge with their brothers, with their sisters. And then they're going to fight between themselves. Then where's the peace? Where's the harmony? So set an example. Be exemplary parents. Is what I'm saying unjust? Is any of this unreasonable? Tell me if that is so. Because you brought them into this world, ladies and gentlemen. You have to teach by example. Instill those values in them, because without those values, they're never going to see what the Buddha is. They're never going to learn. Without those values, they're not going to have a good founding. No foundation. Without a solid foundation, how can you build the castle of Nibbana? You can't. What time is it? So that's general advice. Now on to the meaty stuff, the juicy stuff. We've been talking about this process which leads to the birth of suffering. What is that process called? Indeed, absolutely. Paticcasamuppada. Dependent origination process. The dependent origination of what? Suffering. That's why at the end of that process the Buddha preaches, Eva metassa kevalassa dukkha kandasa samudaya hoti. This is how mountains of suffering come into being. So this is the process that describes this. Now, someone who's ignorant, someone who doesn't realize that this world cannot bring me pleasure, there's no happiness in this world, in the outside world, in the sight, sound, smells, tastes, and touch. It's not the outside world that brings me these. Someone who's ignorant of that is going to continue to think that it's the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, and the touch in the outside world that bring with it, to me, happiness, pleasure, satisfaction. The other day I was reflecting on this because, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we need to reflect on. If this doctrine has sunken in your minds, if the penny has dropped, from that point forward, this is what we need to contemplate on. Because, can you put your arms up if any of you do not feel pleasure? Ashwada? I no longer feel pleasure. Can you put your arm up? Okay, if none of you can put your arm up and say, I no longer feel pleasure when I look at a sight, when I listen to a sound, when I see a pretty girl, I don't feel pleasure. When I have a nice, delicious bit of cake served on a dish, put in front of me, I don't feel pleasure. My mouth doesn't start watering. If you can put your arm up to any of those, then what you are saying to me is, I no longer am in vexation. No more pelima. Which also indicates no more attachment. Which also indicates no more ignorance. Which also indicates you're an arahant. So thankfully I'm not giving a sermon to a group of arahants, because if that is the case, then we are seated incorrectly. I should be there, you should be here. So I was reflecting on this. And this is what we need to reflect on, contemplate on this. Even if you sit down for meditation, here's what you need to think about. Think about a time when you looked at a sight and pleasure came to mind. You felt pleasure, because that's good feeling. When we say Vedana Pachya Tanha, Passa Pachya Vedana, we are talking about the Ashrada. We are talking about pleasurable feeling, which we all are able to experience. But now we've gone beyond the experiencing, and we are now able to see through insight, through wisdom. Because that's what helps us to look at the process and then find out where on this process did we get it all wrong, and then rectify the process. So what I was contemplating on recently was, we've been talking about how sights never brought us pleasure. So then I was thinking, well, if a sight never brought me pleasure, if a sight never brought me happiness, what did a sight bring me? So let's take the simple example of this winnowing fan. What does this is a sight, right? You can all see this. So it's a sight. If you knock on this like this, then it's a sensation, a physical sensation. If you hold it next to your nose, now you can take a sensory smell sensation. But when you're just looking at it from afar, you can see the sight. It's a sight, right? If this winnowing fan cannot bring you pleasure, well then tell me, what can it bring you? What can it bring you? Okay, vipaka, yes. But what is the vipaka? What does it really bring you? No, you're thinking a lot ahead of what I'm trying to get across. No, you're using your eyes to look at this, right? So what are you seeing? Color. Color. You're seeing color. How do you see shape? Difference in color. Difference in color, right? So when you know, the reason that you know that I'm holding a winnowing fan against my robe is, how? My robe's one color, this winnowing fan's another color. If this were both the same color, you wouldn't be able to tell. So all we are able to perceive is difference in color, right? So this winnowing fan, we can think that this, let's say this is an off-white. I'm going to just say yellow, just for ease, okay? Just to keep it simple, I'm going to say this is yellow. Ivory, yellow, I'm going to say yellow. Now, we can come to the conclusion that this brings us color, right? What color does this bring to your eyes? Yellow. Okay. Now, the point I'm trying to get across is, how little really do outside world objects have to do with us? Our interaction with them is really next to none. Let me show this. Let me prove this to you. If you've studied science to some extent, could you tell me how it is that you see that this is yellow? Light falls on the winnowing fan, and then reflection. What is reflected? Only yellow. Why is yellow reflected? What happens to the other colors? Absorbed, right? So what this winnowing fan does is it absorbs all the other colors, and yellow it discards. I don't want it. I don't have nothing to do with you. Go away. I don't want yellow. So really what we perceive is what this winnowing fan has decided I don't want. Throw it away. Discard. I don't want it. I have nothing to do with yellow. I'll absorb everything else. I don't want the yellow. When we look at the winnowing fan and we make a decision, we say that this is yellow, all we are actually seeing is whatever this winnowing fan has discarded. It's not even what this winnowing fan is giving us. Because if it was what the winnowing fan was giving us, we should be able to see everything but yellow. Because what did this winnowing fan absorb? All the other colors. So if this winnowing fan was giving us a sight, then we should be able to see all the other colors but yellow. Because what is the winnowing fan doing? Absorbing all the other colors except for yellow. What it's throwing away, that is what we are picking up. Now, is the winnowing fan even giving us color? No, it's not giving us anything. Because light's falling on it, it's absorbing all that it wants, and what it doesn't want, discard. That is what we are picking up. So it's not the winnowing fan that's giving us the yellow. It's whatever it's not taking in, we are picking up. It's what it's saying, I don't want, I'm discarding, useless, I don't need this. We are picking that up. There are dogs in the monastery. We don't feed the dogs. The winnowing fan even giving us color? No, it's not giving us anything. Because light's falling on it, it's absorbing all that it wants, and what it doesn't want. Again, I'm not talking about the physical. Physically, yes, I can use the winnowing fan to fan me, and that makes me feel comfortable. I'm talking about the mental stuff, the psychological, what happens in the mind. This is not giving us anything. Now let's apply that to a real life situation. Let's say a flower. You can see those flowers there. Aren't they beautiful? They're beautiful, right? Come on. How come you're doing this when about 3 weeks ago you were doing this? It's the same flower. So when you're saying the flower is beautiful, now you know that the flower doesn't have any beauty in it. You do know that now. So the flower can't give you happiness. Now these are purple flowers. But is it the flower that's giving you the purple? Even the color? It's not even giving you the color. It's absorbing every other color and discarding the purple. That is what you're taking in, and then you're deciding that flower just gave me purple. And therefore that color, that flower is purple. We're just eating leftovers. Who are animals that eat leftovers called? They're called scavengers. Scavengers eat leftovers. Pigs eat leftovers. Crows, they eat leftovers. Stray dogs, they eat leftovers. Would you like me to call you a pig? Would you like me to call you a stray dog? Or a crow or a scavenger? But isn't that what we're doing? See, when we see someone on the street, right? Most people that we see on the street are strangers. Isn't that so? When you walk along the roads, most people that we see are strangers. How does someone become a stranger? Why is it some people are strangers, others are friends, and others enemies? You have friend, foe, and stranger. Right? Generally, these are the three categories you can categorize people into: friend, foe, or stranger. Who's a friend? Who's a friend? Is that a mind-boggling question? You've all got friends. Come on, who's a friend? A friend is someone who makes you happy. Is that simple enough? A friend is someone who makes you happy, right? So friends make you happy, right? You don't know to come or go. I don't know, yes or no. A friend is someone who makes us happy. Okay. So a foe is someone who makes us sad, who makes us unhappy. We don't like them. We like people who make us happy, so we call them friends. We like people, or we don't like people, we dislike people who make us unhappy, who make us angry, so we call them enemies. And then strangers are who don't do either of the above. They neither make us happy, nor do they make us angry. That's who a stranger is. What interaction do we have with friends? How do we treat friends? How do we deal with friends? You look like you all come from Mars. Do you not interact with friends? So how do you interact with friends then? You invite them over, you go around to theirs, you get a drink, go to the pub, you have a party, go out for a meal, right? These are things you do with friends. You give them a call, you have a chat, meet them at a garden, go for a walk, right? These are things you do with friends, right? So you have interactions with friends. True? What about enemies? Do you not have interactions with them? So you have interactions with friends. Do you not have interactions with foes, with your enemies? Shoot them. Hopefully not. Well, yes, you do. The interactions you have with your enemies are interactions that are in your favor so that you can keep them away, so that they don't come into your world. They may want to come into your world, but you don't want them to come into your world. You keep them away and do things like shoot them. Not literally, hopefully. So you keep them away. This is how you interact with foes and you interact with friends. Let's say the next door property is up for sale. Okay? Now who do you ring and tell about this to? Your friends. Because perhaps your best friend, because you'd like them to move next door so that you can be close to your friend. Who would you not like to get to know that next door property is up for sale? Your enemies, your foes. So even that, you would take certain steps to prevent that from happening, wouldn't you? For example, if posters have been printed and they've been put on the walls where your enemies live, overnight you're probably going to go and take them all off, so your friends don't find out that next door property is up for sale. So, whatever. You'll probably do things like that. Think about when you were in school. When it was time to grab a seat, I remember when I was at school, we used to have to keep moving. So Monday we used to have the front row. Tuesday the second row. Wednesday the third row, and so on. So we used to keep moving. So going round. And then when we first went into class on day one, so you were very particular about who sat next to you. So if it's your friend coming along, you say, "Hey, Machan, grab this seat. This is yours. Come on, let's sit here." But if it's your enemy, someone you really don't like coming along, no, this seat's taken. That's taken. That's not for you. Like when you reserve seats on a bus. When you get into a bus and it's a really crowded, and there's a lot of people trying to get onto the bus, what do? You put your handbag on the seat next to you, right? So you go and cash a seat, so your friend can come and sit next to you. So you have an interaction with your friends and your foes. But what about strangers? Do we interact with them? No. We don't look to interact with strangers. The reason we don't interact with strangers is because they don't bring us happiness. And they don't bring us unhappiness. They don't bring us suffering either. They have nothing to bring us. Our happiness or sadness or unhappiness is not determined, has no dependency on that outside person. Therefore, we call them a stranger. Now, think about Rupa, Shabda, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch. These things that exist in the outside world, don't you have friends in the sight world, in the sound world, in the taste world? Don't you have friends? And enemies? Okay, you tell me friend or enemy. Okay, I'll call it out. You say you can tell me friend or enemy. Chocolate. Friend? Oh, best friend. Bitter gourd. Possibly not a good friend. Chicken biryani. Friend. So you get the idea? What about smells? Jasmine, friend or foe? Friend. Feces. No. Foe, not a friend. Not a friend. Why is one a friend and the other a foe? Why is your friend, your real friend, I'm not talking about the sight friends, sound friends, taste friends and so on. I'm talking about people friends. Why is your friend a friend again? Because you make a call that they make you happy. Your association with them makes you happy because they bring you happiness, right? This is why you open the door and welcome them with both arms open and embrace them as they walk into your home. Oh, where have you been? I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a seat. Let's have a chat. Because they bring you happiness, right? That's why they're your friends. And the foes, because they take away your happiness. They steal your happiness. They make you sad. They make you angry. Like chocolate makes you happy, right? That's why you call chocolate your friend. So you have friends and foes in the Rupa world, in the Vedana world, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana world. So Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are the things that arise in the mind. Sight, sound, smells, taste and touch, this is in the outside. Again, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, that's, this is all part to do with the outside world. However, sight, sound, smells, taste and touch has to come from the external. So this is why you need your faculties. A sight has to come through your eye. But when it comes through your eye and it leaves that mental impression, when the brain leaves a mental impression on the mind, at that point, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. So the English words being form, feeling, perception, formation or fabrication, and consciousness. I don't really like the English words, but hey ho, these are the English words. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, they come alive. They arise in the mind. This is what happens. This is the scientific process. Sight in front of the eye, in the mind, Rupa, and then Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Sound, ear, in the mind, Shabda Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Taste, tongue, inside the mind, Rasa Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. So in the inside, in the mind, you have 5 that come alive, that are given rise to. This is the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. And in the outside world, it's the sights, sounds, smells, tastes and touch. But we have all made friends out of these things. Now, has never in your lives a friend become an enemy? Never happened? Used to be a friend, but now not so much? What about the other way? Used to be someone I really didn't like, but then I got to know him better, got to know her better, and then they became a friend. When you say, I got to know him better, I got to know her better, what do you mean by that? What really happened? Mental impressions? Go on, continue, expand. Because ultimately it has, if someone's a friend or not, is determined not by the outside person. You make that call. Your best friend, sir, is not my best friend. So a best friend is not someone who lives in the outside world. Someone becomes a best friend in my mind, in your mind, madam. So a best friend is not someone who lives in the outside world. They're just a person. So how did someone who you really didn't like turn into someone that you really liked? How did the four become a friend? There must have been something changed. Where did the change happen? Inside. What was the change then? Beg your pardon? Ability to give pleasure. So their ability to give something, not pleasure, they have the ability, everyone has the ability to give something. All sights, sounds, smells, tastes and touch, give something. People give something. Like, when you're hungry, remember we used that example? When you're hungry, how do you feel, how do you get relief from that? You have to put what into it? Something into it, not food into it. You have to put something into it. And it doesn't matter what that something is. The repercussions might be something we have to deal with later on. But something goes into the stomach, you're no longer hungry. So people can give you something. What changes inside is whether you like it or not. It's we who change. It's always we who change. Not the outside person. Because if our happiness is dependent on the outside person, then we can never be happy. We can never find happiness. A lot of people who complain that they can never find happiness complain so because they expect the outside person to change. They expect the outside world to change. I don't like it to rain. It's raining every day. Oh God. See? One who goes fishing doesn't like it to rain. But the farmer, he likes it for it to rain. But when? Not when he's yielding crop. When he's sowing. When it's time for the crop to grow, that's when he likes the rain. So whether the rain is a curse or a blessing is determined by what? By the state of mind of the farmer. By what he's expecting. Do you see, ladies and gentlemen, how, based on our expectations, we judge the outside world? Is that fair? We are so eager to judge other people, aren't we? We are so eager to say, he's a bad guy. She's a really bad woman. And they never put an arm on us. They never touched us with a finger. Nothing. All we are saying this is because they said something and it hurt my feelings. So where's the fault now? In me. Why am I blaming the outside person? Why am I saying you're bad, you're evil? You shouldn't have said that? Am I not being judgmental about another person when whose fault is it? It's my fault. I am to blame, but I'm pointing the finger at another person who's innocent. So friend or foe is not determined outside. Friend or foe is determined on the inside. But when one day you begin to understand that none of these sights or sounds or smells or tastes or touch really brought you happiness, because happiness was not something, pleasure was not something that could be delivered from the outside world, then the world is no longer your friend or foe. Then we no longer have friends or enemies with the outside world. They're all just strangers. With strangers, we don't fight with them. We don't even get to bed with them. Because they're strangers. Strangers are strangers. So how many friends did the Buddha have? He didn't have any friends. He associated people. He associated things and people. But he didn't have any friends. Because when is a friend born? Because it's a stranger who one day becomes a friend, or it's a stranger who becomes foe, and a foe can become a friend can become a foe. But ultimately what we need to do is make everyone a stranger. That's where we need to get to. The day when everyone in this world is a stranger, and use this When I say stranger, I don't mean I don't know the guy, I don't know his name, so he's a stranger. That's not what I mean. I mean in the sense of, we call someone a friend because he or she brings me something I like. That thing I like, this is what I like, is determined on what you like. This is a function that happens on the inside, not outside. This is why your best friend, madam, is not every other person's best friend. Each of us has a different friend. Each of us have a different best friend because we have decided that person brings me the things that I like. It's the things that I like. Your friend is someone who brings you the things that you like. So whether someone became a friend or not is determined by what I like, what I don't like. So how can you blame the outside world? This is why I asked you the question, is there anyone in this world who's ever made you angry? Anyone? Made you angry? No. Because no one in this world can make you angry. So people are innocent. Everyone in your life that you pointed a finger at and said, how dare you make me angry? Have you not been pointing your finger at an innocent person? Okay, tell me this. Is it right or wrong to blame someone innocent? Someone who's innocent, is it right or wrong to blame them? Right or wrong? Wrong. Aren't there people in your lives who you pointed at and say, how dare you make me angry? Did they really make you angry? They've been innocent all along. So what have you been doing? Pointing your finger at someone and saying, you made me angry. So they never did anything wrong. But what about you? You made a blunder. You made a mistake. You pointed your finger at someone who was innocent and said, you made me angry. That's a false accusation. Is it or is it not? It's a false accusation. No one's made you angry. No one's made you sad. But you pointed your finger out and said, you make me angry. You make me sad. How dare you? False accusation. Is false accusation a meritorious deed or an unmeritorious deed? Falsely accusing someone? So, the outside person never did anything wrong to you, but you took liberties and you just made a false accusation. You just dug yourself a deep hole. The world never did anything to hurt you. Again, I'm not talking about the physical, okay? Mentally, the world, there are no friends or enemies in the world. Everyone's a stranger. We make friends out of strangers. We make foes, enemies out of strangers. And the way someone becomes a friend or an enemy is dependent on, based on what we like, what we are attached to in our minds. This is why chocolate is today your friend. Not because the chocolate has anything to give you. All the chocolate has is taste. But you like the taste of chocolate. Therefore you say, chocolate is my friend. You don't like the taste of bitter gourd. Therefore you say, bitter gourd is not my friend. But what if the day comes where you really like it? You really like bitter gourd. Now, foe has become a friend. What if the day comes where you don't like chocolate? That day is never going to come, right? But if that day were to come, then friend becomes foe. Now, that was just an example, but think about all sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch. This thing that we call the world. What is the world if it's not Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha, Dhamma? That is the world. That is what the world is. On the outside and on the inside, it's Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is the world. This is the world that we are attached to. Lokaya, Kaya Lovano. Kaya is Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Lovano is to attach, to dwell, to indulge. Lokaya. So there's the outside Rupa, Vedana, sight, sound, smells, taste, touch. There's the inside Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Together they make the world, and the thing that connects these two are what? eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. This is what connects. This is the bridge that connects the sight to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, sound to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, taste, you get the idea. These are the faculties that connect the outside world to the inside world. When we have this distorted view, distorted perception, distorted consciousness that it's the outside world that brought me happiness, now you continue to attach yourself to the outside world. Because you see, this is a feedback loop. One false impression leads to the next false impression. And it continues to cement one layer on top of the other. Because what happens is, remember when we discussed the dependent origination process, at one point there was Vijnana Pacchaya Nama Rupa, right? And in Vijnana Pacchaya Nama Rupa, those Nama Rupa were the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that we clinged onto in the past, which are now in the memory banks. So this is the magician, this is the wizard trying to perform a trick, bringing his tools to the stage. These tools, this equipment that he's using are Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana from the outside world, or rather from memory. That was the Vijnana Pacchaya Nama Rupa. But then later on, where it was Passa Pacchaya Vedana, remember last week we explained this, where it was Passa Pacchaya not just Vedana, but it's Passa Pacchaya Rupa, Passa Pacchaya Vedana, Passa Pacchaya Sanya, Passa Pacchaya Sankara, and Passa Pacchaya Vijnana. All five. So now, here's what I was expecting, here's what I've received now. Do they match? So what we are doing is the matching process. This is a matchmaker. Kapua. Are you a Kapua? Aren't we all? Oh, we are great matchmakers. What do we do? We take the history, we take what we had in the past, what we now have in the present, and now we do a matching. Do they match? If they match, there's Sapa Vedana, pleasurable feeling. Don't match, Dukkha Vedana. Until the moment of matching where you're still investigating, that's where the Upeksha Vedana is. Because you still can't make a call. Pelima. It's like where that gift is still in the wrapping paper. You don't know what it is. You're shaking it, trying to bang it on the floor. Do I know what this is? That's that Upeksha Vedana. It's still Pelima, vexation there. Now another point I want to try and get across, and you'll need to contemplate on this. Remember that the purpose of a mind that is based on ignorance is to create the self. Yes? This is self-procreation. Continuously we are in the process of creating self. With every thought that arises and passes by, we are producing the self. And another word for self is, we discussed lots of words in the past. Beg your pardon, sir? Upadanaskanda is one word. What else? Pleasure world? Pleasure world, right? Pleasure world. This is another word for self. So with every thought, what we are trying to do is create this pleasure world. Now, it happens to be the case that although this is what we are trying to do, the world is not always kind on us. Because the world is anicca. The world is not to our liking. Therefore, on some occasions, what we receive through our faculties are sight, sound, smells and tastes that we like, which we were expecting. But on other occasions, there are sight, sound, smells and tastes that we weren't expecting. This is not what we wanted. Therefore, Sapa Vedana and Dukkha Vedana. But with either of these two, we are still trying to create the self. And let me show you how. Where it is Passa Pacchaya Sukha Vedana, no problem there. Because there's a match. And then immediately, Vedana Pacchaya Tanha, attached. Why attached? Well, because it was pleasurable feeling that I just received. So this is what I was looking for. This is what I now have been able to receive. Therefore, surely this is now helping me to build my sandcastle. Another word for self. What happens when it's Dukkha Vedana? Not tanha, but patiga. For those of you who might have contemplated what the meaning of the word patiga is, patiga, pati is attachment. Ga is gatima, friction, conflict. So there seems to be an attachment to conflict, a bondage to friction. So we're not just fighting, we like to fight. This is not just, I don't like it, take it away if you can. I don't like it, take it away now. Do you see the difference? Because now you are wanting for this to go away. I don't want this. This is not what I was expecting. It's something completely against my expectation. Therefore, I just received dukkha vedana a moment ago. Now, I'm trying to build the self. But I'm unable to build the self because the Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha that came from the outside world are not what I asked for. It's not to my liking. Therefore, here's a moment of conflict. Now, think about this for a moment. I'm going to take a step aside and we'll come back. I give you some money. I give all of you some money. Or let's say you all have an account. Okay? So you can go overdrawn on this account. So today you have, let's say, 100 rupees in this account. If you withdrew 100 rupees, now you have a zero balance. If you continue to withdraw, let's say you've withdrawn 200 rupees. Now your balance is minus 200. Okay? Creating the self or pleasure, or let me put it this way. If I were to ask you, with an account where your balance is minus 200, what would make you happy? When you start to see the balance go down or the balance go up? The balance go up, right? Now remember, at this point it's minus 200. So, if the balance went up to minus 300, would that make you happy or unhappy? Unhappy. If the balance went up to minus 100, when it was minus 200 before, does that make you unhappy or happy? That's good, right? Because your balance is increasing. It's still in the negative space, but it's still increasing. So you like that. So although it's in the negative space, it's still increasing. So minus 200 becomes a minus 100, minus 50, minus 25, and eventually it gets to a zero. And then again, you put more money in, it continues to increase. And you now have a positive balance in your account. Even that still makes you happy. So, answer this question. You have zero balance. 100 rupees deposited in the account gives you 100 rupees balance in your account. That gives you a certain amount of happiness, right? You have a minus 500 balance. I give you, let's say you have two accounts. In one account, 0 went to 100. In the other account, minus 500 went to 0. Which made you happier? 0 going to 100 or minus 500 going to 0? Minus 500 going to 0. Because although that's still in the negative space, that was an increment. Now, both these events brought you pleasure. True? 0 going to 100 brought you pleasure. Minus 500 going to 0 still brought you pleasure. Because you like a positive balance in your account. You like it going up, not down. Creating the self is the same. Because we are trying to build pleasure world. Being able to construct brick by brick the pleasure world so we can build this pleasure world up brings us pleasure, no doubt. There's something else that also brings us pleasure. If there are external factors that keep taking these bricks away one at a time when I'm trying to build it, if I'm able to stop that from happening, does that not bring me happiness? Let's say I'm trying to build one side of the wall, okay? So this is the pleasure world I'm trying to build. There's a massive wall. Let's say it's the wall's the length, the width of this room. On the right hand side, I'm putting bricks up to build this wall. On the right, on the left-hand side, so that's your right. On the left-hand side, bricks that were put in before, someone comes and takes them away one at a time. So as I'm building this side up, someone's coming and taking away bricks from the other side. So I'm putting one brick up every minute. On the other side, someone's taking 2 bricks away every minute. You tell me, which of these two would make me happier? Continuing to put bricks up one at a time at 1 brick per minute, or going and attending to that guy who's taken away 2 bricks at a minute? Which one's going to make me happier? Attending to that guy. Making sure that stops from happening. Right? Because I'm trying to build my pleasure world, and on the left-hand side, something's happening in the outside world that's becoming a barrier, that's being a hindrance, that's taking away my happiness. All with me so far? This is why, using that example of building this wall, just as much as I like to build this wall 1 brick at a time, I also like to stop whatever is trying to take bricks away. If there's anyone that's responsible for taking my bricks away from this wall that I'm so struggling to build, do I not like to do that? Is that not something I do willfully, willingly, earnestly? Because I'm trying to build a wall. When I'm trying to build a wall, someone's coming and taking away bricks that I've already laid. If I were to go and stop that person, is that not something that I would do quite happily? Because they're trying to stop me from building the wall. Surely I have to get into conflict with that person. Because he or she is doing something that I don't like. And I have to go and stop that person from doing it. Conflict. I want one thing, they want another. So conflict, friction. But do I not do that willingly? Happily? Gleefully? Yes, I'm quite happy to do that. Because I'm trying to build the wall, they're not letting me do it. So I'm going to come and stop you, and I'm going to do it quite happily. Isn't that a bondage? Isn't that an attachment to conflict? Because trying to build the wall, you're not letting me do it. I'm going to come and show you I'm going to come and teach you a lesson, and I'm going to do it quite happily. Just as much as it makes me happy to build the wall up 1 brick at a time, it makes me equally happy to go and stop the guy who's trying to take away bricks from my wall. They make me equally happy. And that is how, even when there's patiga, so even when there's dukkha vedana, at that point in the dependent origination process, what this mind is now willing to do is thinking that unhappiness, displeasure came from the outside world. Now I have an interest to take that away from my world. Because if it was a sight or a sound that brought me unhappiness, I was expecting one, I received something else. I'm not happy. Now that's stopping me from building pleasure world. So what do I have to do now? Stop that from happening again. Do I not do that happily? Quite willingly? But there has to be conflict there. But am I not quite voluntarily putting myself forward to go and do it quite happily? That's where gatima is, where conflict is, but still I am attached to it. Patiga. I am attached to that conflict. So again, even when I'm attached to it, I'm still trying to build the self by doing that. Because if the net result is me having built this wall completely, imagine, that's my project, to build a wall, brick by brick, so that there's no space between the ceiling and the floor, and it's a solid wall. Okay, that's my project, which is the self. As I'm trying to lay bricks on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, someone's coming and taking a brick, 2 bricks at a time. So to build this wall, I have to not only lay my bricks, but also stop the guy who comes and steals my bricks. Both of these has to happen. And both of them make me happy because they are both supportive, conducive to me building the wall. And this is why even the process of dukkha vedana pacca patiga, even through that process we are still building the self. Because even that has to happen for the wall to be built. Because just laying bricks
After I've laid all my bricks on the left hand side, all the bricks have gone. Now my wall is gone. I have to start building the wall again. So do you see, even where there's dukkha vedana, for as long as we believe that it's the outside object that brought me this displeasure, this unhappiness, I'm going to get into conflict. Because there's no understanding that it's attachment that brought me dukkha vedana. It's attachment that brought me sappa vedana. No understanding of that. Ignorant. We are speaking of an ignorant person who believes that dukkha vedana, sappa vedana, upeksha vedana, all three of these come from the outside world. When they are in that view, based on that view, they're going to take action. Either to continue building, or while continuing to build, stop whatever external factors there are that get in the way of me building this wall. Because they think that both building the wall and taking bricks away from the wall are things that other people are responsible for. The outside people, the outside world is responsible for, not something that I am responsible for entirely and solely. Pleasure only ever came from relief from suffering. Relief from vexation. That's the only time where we experience pleasure. Not from the outside world. Imagine there are 3 people. They're all stood up like this. Okay? 3 guys standing in a straight line. Now, the reason that this guy in the middle is standing up, or let's say it's like this. Okay? So this guy is like this. This third guy, he sat down, but 2 guys, they are standing up, upright. This guy is standing up, that guy is standing up. The guy in the middle, he sat down. The reason that this guy sat down is because this guy stood up. The reason that this guy is standing up is because this guy is sitting down. The reason that this guy is standing up is because this guy is sitting down, not because this guy is standing up. So the connection is only that way. Whatever he does is because of what he does. What he does is because of what he does. So what he does is because of what he does. What he does is because of what he does. There's no connection between this guy and this guy. Are you with me so far? So this guy sat down like this, and that's because he's standing up. This guy stood up, and that's because he's sitting down. Now when this guy sits down, what is this guy going to do? He's going to stand up. And when he's standing up, this guy is going to sit down. Because the guy next to him he's only going to follow the opposite. He's only going to do the opposite of what the guy next to him is doing. This is how attachment, vexation, and pleasure work. When there is, or rather, Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha, arising and passing away, and vexation, pelima, and pleasure work. Now let me explain. When this guy is standing up, this guy is sitting down. This guy is Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha Dhamma, from the outside world, arising. When this is arising, this guy sat down. What is this guy down? This is vexation. No more vexation. Why no more vexation? Because sight, sound, smell, taste and touch has come from the outside world. When he sat down, this guy is standing up. What is this guy now? Pleasure. But because he's standing up and this guy sitting down, he doesn't see this guy because he's just looking straight. So he doesn't see this guy. He doesn't bend down to see, oh, there's another guy who sat down. All he can see now is this guy standing up. So what's he going to think? The reason I'm standing up. So if this is pleasure, this guy's looking straight and seeing that this guy stood up, and he's going to come to the conclusion that sight, sound, smell, taste and touch in the outside world brought me pleasure. This is why I'm standing up, because he doesn't see that this guy is sitting down. I think it would make... Let's try and get this into an animation so you can see it. It will make more sense. It's just a thought that came to my mind, and perhaps it'll help you to get this message across. Like, I don't know if you've been to last week's sermon and the week before on Saturdays, where Guru Swami uses these bulbs to explain Ashwada Pelima and Tanha, or rather Udavima Vaivima, Ashwada and Pelima. So the same thing can be explained by using an example like this as well. 3 people stood in a row. One guy stood up, the other guy sat down, the third guy stood up. The second guy is sitting down because this guy A, the first guy, is standing up. So that's Udavima Vaivima, or rather arising and passing away. So he's standing up. When he's standing up, vexation is sitting down. Arising and passing away, standing up. Arising, standing up. Vexation is sitting down. When vexation is sat down, pleasure is standing up. Imagine that's their names. Arising, vexation, pleasure. These are the names of 3 guys. Arising is standing up. Or the world. World arising. What's the world? Sights, sounds, smells, taste, touch. That's on the outside. And Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, that's on the inside. So world. World standing up. Vexation sitting down. Pleasure standing up. But pleasure doesn't see that vexation sitting down. When he looks to his right, all he can see is the world standing up. But he doesn't realize that the reason that he's able to stand up is because vexation sat down right now. The moment world sits down, vexation stands up. And when vexation stands up, pleasure has to sit down. Again, he doesn't realize that it's because of vexation, that it's because of attachment, that my pleasure has passed away. I'm in this state of my pleasure has passed away. He believes, because when he looks to his right, he just sees the world has sat. That's what he sees. However, what we need to get into our minds, this is what really needs to sink. Because when you will no longer point your finger at the outside world. You no longer find friends and foes in the outside world. Chocolate will not be your friend, and bitter gourd will not be your enemy. Because none of these things can really bring you pleasure. You like something, when you receive what you like, that makes you happy, not because it's that object that brought you happiness. It's because through your liking, you were in a state of vexation. It just happened to be, as if by coincidence, when the outside object came into your world, you were now relieved from vexation. It's the relief, it's a process. Really, pleasure is a process. Pleasure is not a thing, it's a process. The outside world, that's the thing. Vexation, that's a process. Pleasure, that's also a process. So it's not an outside world thing that can bring it to you, it's a process. And that process is what's described by the dependent origination process. How vexation and pleasure come forth. How they become obvious. Do you have any questions of the things that we've discussed so far? Okay. So the practical advice, well, there was some you at the beginning. That is being grateful. Look at everyone in your lives who have touched your lives in any way, shape or form. That could be small things. What about your barber? Should you not be grateful to your barber? Don't fall into this view where everything becomes materialistic. I pay my barber, so why should I be grateful? What about your driver? Should you not be grateful to your driver? Don't fall into that I pay my driver, so why? Well, why are you not driving? Because you don't like to drive. Or whatever it is, maybe you are not able to drive. Perhaps a physical disability. Perhaps you don't like to drive. Well, some other guy is doing it on your behalf. All the money in the world and he's still not prepared to do it. Now what do you do? It's not money that makes the world go round. It's people. It's people that makes the world go round. Be grateful for the people that touch your lives. From the very first 2 people that touch your lives, your parents. From the doctor that brought you into this world. From your mother's womb. Be grateful. And everyone since then, your Montessori teachers, your nursery teachers, your grandparents, your siblings, who shared their toys with you. There may have been differences later on as you grew up. Fights, brawls, disagreements in the family. Life's not long enough to hold on to disagreements. Life's not long enough to hold on to grudges. Just let them go. Because for every moment you have that grudge, who's it burning? You. Can you afford to be burnt? When you have this battle to fight with Mara, when you have a battle to fight with Raga, Dvesha, Moha, why do you cling on to these little grudges that eat you from the inside? Just let them go. Be the better man. Pick up the courage, go and speak to them. Put to rest those disagreements. Perhaps they might still not agree with you, but don't hold grudges. Because a grudge is only burning you from the inside. And whatever people do to you, don't go and find fault with them. Because it might be that someone leaves you in seek of another partner. It might be that someone shouts at you, scolds you, blames you. But remember, no one in this world can really make you angry except for yourself. But if you are angry and you pick up something to throw at them, remember, you're picking up feces. This is excreta. You befoul yourself before you befoul the other person. You're touching it in the first place. So you're burning first before you burn the other person. Put them to a side. There's no time for us to meddle with these pesky little grudges. There's no time for us to do that. How much longer do you think you're all going to be alive? Even if it was a natural death, how much more time do we all think we're going to be alive? Put aside accidents. We don't know when they're going to come. But natural life? Are you sure you're going to be around in the next 50 years' time? Can you guarantee another 40? Some of you may be able to count your next few years on your 10 fingers. Some may be just on one hand. So how much time do you have left? Is it worth holding on to these little grudges in the time that you have left, when there's so much that's left to do? When there's a clear path that we can all walk on to redeem ourselves from suffering once and for all? I don't know about you, but I don't have the time for that. There's no time to mess about. If you haven't become a Sotapanna yet, the moment you go deaf, you might as well not come along to these sermons anymore. Well, you won't be able to listen to me anyway. But you might as well stop meditating, you might as well stop everything. Because you're not going to be able to become a Sotapanna in this birth. Do meritorious deeds, but meditation is not going to help you. So we don't have time to mess about. There's a huge task on our hands to attain Nibbana. Let's not mess about. This is precious time that's ticking us by. So be an example. Show them to, teach your children by example. Teach your best friend by example. You see, each and every one of you because you're all walking this path of Dhamma, is a blessing to society. Perhaps in your past lives, or rather earlier on in your lives, perhaps you were a curse to society. I don't know about you guys, but you can think about your own lives, the way you were, the kind of way, the way you conducted yourself. Maybe you were just walking raga, dvesha, moha, or lobha, dosa, moha, always instigating hate in other people's minds. You were a curse to society back then, but now you're a blessing to society. Just the sight of you can do good to other people. A few words that you speak can do good to other people, because now you don't try to instigate anger and hatred in other people's minds, do you? No, when you speak to another person, you talk to them about compassion. You talk to them about benevolence. You talk to them about charity. You talk to them about being kind. You talk to them in words that help them to let go of the world, not attach themselves to the world. So you are a blessing to society. You are a blessing to your family, to your extended family. So be that blessing. People like you are rare. People who have listened to the Dhamma are rare, because the Dhamma is extremely rare. So be a blessing to society. Because no matter how we decide to choose to live the rest of our lives, we're all going to go one day. And the day you go, one of two things will happen. The day you go, there'll still be good people and bad people in this world. Even after the Buddha passed away, there were still good and bad people in this world. The day you go, one of two things will happen. Either good people will praise you, and the bad people in this world will say good riddance, or it's going to be the other way around. The good people in this world, the bad people in this world will praise you, and the good people in this world will go good riddance. Which one are you prepared to hear? Yesterday Guru Swamin Wahanse said in his sermon, Nariyo, who kiwata kamak naha, Deviyo, sadhu kiyanawa na. What if it happens the other way around? Deviyo who kiya di nariyo sadhu kiwate. None of us want that, right? So it's not the past that matters, ladies and gentlemen. Don't regret. Don't repent. The past has happened. Let's learn from what happened in the past. Let's be grateful for everyone who touched our lives in any way, shape or form. You might feel that they did you disservice. That's still okay. Be grateful. Because whatever, they came and touched your lives. If it had not been for Devadatta, we would have not had the Buddha today. True or false? True. How would the Buddha have been able to fulfill his perfections if not for Devadatta? Every time the Devadatta stood there like an enemy to him. The Bodhisattva wasn't an enemy of Devadatta, but Devadatta was. Every time he was there to cause him harm, hurt, abuse him, and in every occasion, what he did was he fulfilled the perfections. He practiced compassion, patience, and ultimately the end result was the Buddha. So thanks to the Devadatta who sacrificed himself and went to Avidya, we today have the Buddha. So shouldn't we all be grateful to Devadatta? If you can see the good in Devadatta, what about your dog? What about your enemies? What about your boss? What about your employees? What about your ex-wife? What about your ex-husband? Surely there's good to be seen in them. Right? Then do so. Be the better person. Okay. Is it in English today? English? Okay. So before we conclude then, let us chant the Arya Maitri for a few moments. And again I remind you, it's not the words, but it's the meaning behind the words that we need to contemplate on. And with that, reflect on the meanings. Reflect on what sensual worlds are. When we talk about sight, sound, smell, taste, this is the sensual world. And when we say it's in despair, think about the meaning behind this word despair. Anyone who seeks happiness from a sensual world is destitute, helpless, anatai. That's what despair means. Helpless. So all beings who are seeking for pleasure, who are seeking to be happy by associating a sensual world, needs the refuge of the Buddha. They need the refuge of the Dhamma and the Sangha, although they may not know it. But they need it. It's like a child who does not know that he needs the refuge of his mother. The child doesn't know it, but it still needs it. Okay. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the flames of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the rupa worlds. The arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the arupa worlds. May all worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana. Okay. Speaking of gratitude, and not that others haven't been part and parcel of what we are doing right now, how far we've come, and all this that's happening. I've been informed that, I think it's Mrs. Umanda, I don't recall her surname, Alepolo is it? Yes. Is indisposed, she's unwell, and I think she has been for a few weeks. I think it's only right that we share our gratitude, we show our gratitude. And again, not saying that others haven't contributed. She's only just the face of what, this is who I think you coordinate with to arrange these sermons, certainly in this venue. But there are others in other countries who go through a lot of effort and make a lot of effort to make these sermons available and possible, also just as much as every one of you. But I think on an occasion and a time when she needs our blessings, I think it's when we transfer merits, perhaps we should all spare a moment to wish her well and transfer the merits that we have all acquired to her as well, and in the hope and prayer that may she be able to recover very soon and be able to join us in the near future. Okay, so let us take a moment to transfer merits to all those who deserve these merits. First and foremost, let us take a moment to reflect once again that it's because of the supremely enlightened Buddha that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because he sacrificed himself over many countless births in samsara, over many eons in samsara, that today we have the gift of Dhamma that helps us all to redeem from the shackles of samsara. And also because of the bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas who sacrificed their lives and protected and preserved the Dhamma in the form of the Tripitaka and passed it down to us through our ancestors. It is because of them that today we have the Tripitaka to study, to analyze, to contemplate, to understand and find our path to Nibbana. So may all those bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas who dedicated their lives, sacrificed their lives to protecting and preserving this Dhamma be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves and be born in the blissful planes. May these merits help them all to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also let us take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha who don robes to practice the Noble Eightfold Path and have dedicated themselves to attaining Nibbana, and also spare a moment to all the monks and nuns in your local temples, in your local nunneries, any member of the clergy who might have touched your life in any way, shape or form, be that in your formative years or in recent years. It is the monks and nuns in your local temples and your local nunneries who have always been by your side through rain and shine, through thick and thin, coming along to your almsgivings, to your funerals and so on and so forth, to pass on their blessings to you. So let us all take a moment to transfer merits to them as well as that take a moment to transfer merits to Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasak, Upasikas, wherever they may be in these 31 worlds of existence, who have dedicated their lives to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. People just like yourselves, may they all also be able to rejoice in these merits. For anyone who might have been born in the woeful planes, may these merits help them to be able to born in the blissful planes. And for all beings in the blissful planes, may these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to pass on these merits to everyone who have helped make this event a success. Anyone who might have invited you to be here today, perhaps provided you with transport, or perhaps coordinated this event in such a way that the facilities and the venue, so on and so forth, were available for your comfort, for your listening pleasure. All those who might have offered you a glass of water, or perhaps offered you a meal to sate your hunger, or perhaps offered you a seat such that you were able to sit down and comfortably listen to these sermons, or perhaps by providing you with the facilities that you have in this venue, the fans to take away for your comfort, and lights so that you can be in this room in comfort. And also, as we mentioned a moment ago, let us take a moment to pass on the merits that we have all acquired today to Mrs. Umanda Alipole, who is currently in a state of illness. May, through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today, all of those beings that we have reminded be able to rejoice in these merits. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may these merits help them to be born in the blissful planes. And through the power of these merits, may they all be able to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path. And if any of them are indisposed, may their illnesses pass away, and they all be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to those members of the armed forces, as well as members of the police force who dedicated their lives and sacrificed their lives to protecting and preserving this country. It is thanks to them that today we are all able to live in peace and harmony despite our differences. Let us take a moment to transfer merits to them as well. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to be born in the blissful plane. May these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to those beings who might have lost their lives in natural calamities and disasters such as the tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, and so on and so forth, not just in Sri Lanka but also in other countries. Perhaps there may be friends and relations among them, but perhaps the most of them are those who may not be known to you. But if any of them are today looking for merits, may through the power of these merits that we have all acquired today, any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may these merits help them to be born in the blissful plane. May these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to those men and women who have dedicated their lives, who have set aside time in their lives to developing this country, protecting this country, preserving this country, and leading this country. It is thanks to them that today we are having the freedom, the spare time to dedicate our lives to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, practicing the path of Nibbana, practicing the Dhamma. If not for them, today you and I will have to be leading this country. You and I will have to be developing and cultivating this country. You and I will have to be protecting this country, our nation. So it is thanks to them that today we have the freedom, we have the peace of mind to be able to practice this path in peace and harmony. So may the power of these merits help them all to also abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may the merits that we have all acquired today in listening to this sermon, in preaching this sermon, in making this event possible, as well as making offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, as well as any meritorious deeds that you can think of throughout your life, culminate and come together, and in the power of all these merits, may this blessed land be able to witness many hundreds and thousands of Arahatun Wahanses in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may you and I and everyone who might have helped make this event possible in any way, shape or form, the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead that might have joined us at the start of this sermon, be able to become one of those Arahatun Wahanses, one of those Arahat Mehinin Wahanses, in the era of the Gautama, Samma, Sambhujana Wahanse itself, in this very birth itself. May we all be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginneng midetva, Dvesha ginneng midetva, Moha ginneng midetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva, Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බැලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of desire, be freed from the fire of aversion, be freed from the fire of delusion. May all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the noble triple gem be with you all.
Samajjhana Vemana